The scent of mint tea still reminds me of home. Every morning in my apartment in Brooklyn, I brew a pot and let the aroma take me back to our small house near Marrakesh, where my mother would serve tea as the sun rose over the Atlas Mountains. 20 years have passed since I left Morocco, yet these small rituals keep me connected to where I began. You can't build a new life by forgetting the foundation of your old one, my father once told me. He had no idea how deeply those words would shape my career designing homes for people starting over in America. My name is Fatima. I'm 45 years old, and this is how I went from sketching buildings in the sand as a girl to designing affordable housing for immigrant families in New York City. I was 25 when I packed 2 suitcases and said goodbye to my family. The airport terminal in Casablanca buzzed with voices and announcements I barely registered as my parents stood before me, trying to be brave. "New York is waiting for you," my mother said, adjusting my hijab with trembling hands. "But don't forget, we are waiting too." The architecture program at Columbia University had accepted me with a partial scholarship. The remaining $15,000 per year was covered by my family's savings and loans from relatives. The weight of their sacrifice sat heavily on my shoulders during that 7-hour flight across the Atlantic. I arrived in January. The cold hit me like a physical blow as I stepped outside JFK Airport. In Morocco, winter meant light jackets and occasional rain. Here, the wind cut through my clothes, and snow piled in dirty heaps along the streets. My first apartment was a tiny room in Washington Heights that cost $850 a month, nearly half my budget. I shared a bathroom with 3 strangers and slept on a mattress on the floor. Each night, I'd wrap myself in blankets and wonder if I'd made a terrible mistake. The classroom became my battlefield. My technical skills were strong. I could draft and design with precision, but when professors asked questions, panic would rise in my throat. "Ms. Ben Ali, please explain your concept for this project," Professor Wilson said during my second week. I had practiced my explanation all night, but the words tangled on my tongue. English words lived in my mind like shy guests who wouldn't come out when company arrived. The building. It makes community. Together, I managed, gesturing with my hands where words failed me. Some classmates looked away in secondhand embarrassment. Others checked their phones. After class, I hid in a bathroom stall and cried for 10 minutes before pulling myself together. That night, I called my mother for the first time since arriving. "I can't do this," I told her in Arabic. "My English is terrible. My classmates think I'm stupid." "Then show them with your work," she replied simply. "Before you could speak as a child, you showed us what you wanted with your hands and your heart. Do it again." I hung up the phone and spread my drawings across my small desk. If I couldn't tell them, I would show them. For 3 months, I barely spoke in class. Instead, I poured everything into my designs. While my classmates created sleek, modern buildings with glass facades, I designed spaces that felt like embraces, courtyards that encouraged conversation, kitchens large enough for extended families, prayer rooms with eastern-facing windows. Professor Wilson stopped me after class one day. "Your work speaks volumes, Fatima. But I'd like to hear from you, too." He suggested I join a free ESL program at a community center near campus. 3 evenings a week, I sat with other immigrants, a nurse from the Philippines, a chef from Venezuela, a taxi driver from Bangladesh, all of us struggling to make this new language our own. Maria, our teacher, had moved from Puerto Rico as a teenager. "English is like a puzzle," she told us. "You don't need all the pieces to see the picture." Slowly, I found my voice. Not perfect, but present. In my second year, we had to complete a major project, designing a public library. I worked 80 hours a week, sleeping only 4 hours most nights. The design combined elements of Moroccan architecture with modern functionality, arched doorways, a central courtyard, reading nooks designed to feel like the Medinas of my childhood. 2 days before the presentation, my computer crashed. 3 weeks of work disappeared. I called the tech support line, trying to explain through tears what had happened, but the person couldn't understand my accent. I sat on the floor of my apartment, surrounded by preliminary sketches, and felt something break inside me. I was 4,000 miles from home, drowning in debt, and now this. I picked up the phone to call my parents and tell them I was coming home. Before I dialed, my phone lit up with a message from Aisha, a classmate from India who had become a friend. "Are you okay? You missed study group. Let me know if you need anything." I typed through tears. Computer crashed. Lost everything. 10 minutes later, Aisha was at my door with her laptop. Behind her stood June from South Korea and Miguel from Mexico, classmates I barely knew. "We'll help you rebuild it," Aisha said. For the next 48 hours, we worked in shifts. When one person needed sleep, another took over. They translated my ideas when words failed me, found references when my memory faltered. We finished with just 1 hour to spare. The design wasn't perfect, but it was complete. As we walked to the presentation together, Miguel said something I'll never forget: "This is what America is supposed to be. People from everywhere, building something together." I graduated in the top 10% of my class. The job market was tight, the recession had hit architecture firms hard. I had offers from 2 corporate firms designing luxury condos and office buildings. The starting salary was $75,000, enough to finally send money home and live comfortably. Then a small firm called Housing Bridges contacted me. They specialized in affordable housing for immigrant communities. The salary was $45,000, barely enough to live on in New York. "Why are you interested in our firm?" asked Sarah, the principal architect, during my interview. I told her about arriving in New York, about my tiny room with the shared bathroom, about the families I'd seen crowded into apartments too small for them. A house is not just walls and a roof. It's the first step to belonging somewhere new. Sarah hired me that day. My first project was a 40-unit building in Queens for families transitioning from homeless shelters. Many were immigrants like me. I insisted on large kitchens where families could cook foods from their homelands, community spaces where children could do homework together, and a rooftop garden where elders could grow vegetables and herbs. The contractors pushed back. "We'll lose 4 units with kitchens this size," they argued. "The budget won't allow it." I fought for every square foot. "We're not just building apartments," I insisted. "We're building the foundation for new lives." When the building opened 2 years later, I watched as families received their keys. A woman from El Salvador stood in her new kitchen, running her hands over the countertops, tears streaming down her face. "This is the first kitchen that belongs to just my family," she told me in Spanish. In the shelter, we shared with 20 other families. I thought of my mother's kitchen in Morocco, how the scents of cumin and coriander would fill our home, how neighbors would gather around our table. This woman would create her own memories now. 15 years have passed since that first building. I've designed housing complexes in all 5 boroughs of New York City. Last year, our firm won an award for a mixed-use development in the Bronx that includes affordable apartments, a health clinic, and a community center with free ESL classes. The girl who once couldn't speak in class now teaches architecture workshops for immigrant teenagers. We sketch together, dream together, and sometimes just sit in comfortable silence, letting our pencils speak for us. My parents finally visited New York last summer. I took them to see all the buildings I've designed. My father, now walking with a cane, stood in the courtyard of my latest project, a housing complex for refugee families. Children played on equipment I'd specifically designed to encourage interaction across language barriers. "When you were little, you used to build tiny houses in the garden with stones and twigs," my father said, watching the children play. "I thought it was just a game." "It was never just a game," I told him. That night, in my apartment, much bigger now than my first room, we drank mint tea and watched the lights of Manhattan twinkle outside my window. I'd come so far from that scared young woman at the airport. The journey hadn't been easy, but it had been worth every struggle. If you're reading this and standing at your own crossroads, wondering if you should take that leap into the unknown, I won't tell you it will be easy. There will be nights you cry yourself to sleep. Days when your confidence shatters. Moments when turning back seems like the only option. But there is a place waiting for you, a place where your unique perspective is needed. The world needs builders of all kinds, people who know what it means to leave everything behind and start again. Your struggles aren't just obstacles, they're the raw materials from which you'll construct something beautiful. After all, the strongest bridges are built by those who understand both shores.